I recently read the book The Introvert Advantage: How Quiet People Can Thrive in an Extrovert World, written by Marty Olson-Laney, who is a psychotherapist. And I give this book 2.5 stars, which is also how many stars I gave The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I picked this book up because besides the intriguing title, it had some pretty great reviews. Specifically, quite a few people said that they wish every extrovert would read this book to understand them better. Meanwhile, I read this book thinking how I would not want any of my extroverted friends or colleagues or acquaintances to read this book and base the way that I am on this book. So for the next 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, we will be talking about the book and why I ended up giving it a low rating. But to give you the short overview version of my reasoning, here it is. After reading the book Quiet by Susan Cain years ago, which is like the holy grail book for any introvert, I felt empowered, like the world was at my feet. After reading this book, however, I felt like I was at a disadvantage, like the world will always be more difficult for someone like me, and that I just need to learn how to cope with that, which is ironic considering she repeatedly writes in the book that there is nothing wrong with you, yet that's how I ended up feeling. Now, to be fair, the timeline of things might have played a role. I read Quiet when I was very new to introversion, and since then I have been studying it quite a bit, and so I'm able to think more critically about what's being said and written. But hey, let's rewind the tape. Let's start from the beginning because we got a lot of ground to cover today. So according to Laney, in this book, you are going to learn 3 things. 1, whether or not you are an introvert. 2, how to understand and appreciate your introvert advantages. And 3, how to nurture your valuable nature. So essentially, the book is split into 3 parts, and in the book, she refers to introverts as innies and extroverts as outies. I'm not a fan of those words, but hey, let's not be too nitpicky just yet. All right, let's start with part 1 of the book, which is titled Fish Out of Water. So Laney, oh shit, I need my computer. So, Laney describes what introversion is and provides some insight to help you figure out whether or not you are an introvert. So for instance, she gives us a list of qualities, and if you identify with several or all of these qualities, then you are introverted. So it's things like prefer to relax alone or with a few close friends, consider only deep relationships as friends, need rest after outside activities, even ones that you enjoy, often listen but talk about topics of importance to you, appear calm, self-contained, and like to observe, tend to think before you speak or act, experience mind going blank in groups or under pressure, and don't like feeling rushed. She further describes how the primary difference between introverts and extroverts is how they recharge their batteries, where extroverts are energized by the outside world, so things like talking to people and engaging in activities outside of themselves and working around people and activities and things, whereas introverts are energized by the internal world, by ideas, impressions, and emotions. In part 2 of the book, she writes about relationships, parenting, socializing, and working for introverts, and she names it Navigating the Extroverted Waters. Now, each chapter provides detailed, easy to apply tips and tricks that you can use in your life, and I actually like that. So in the chapter about relationships, for example, she gives a list of advice for a first date, some of which are the following. So make the first date short, meet at a place that is easy to escape, don't overextend yourself, don't try to be extroverted, look for red flags, and pay attention to any negative emotions you may have. Now, I do believe that this is generally good advice and not necessarily advice specific to introverts, which is something I found myself thinking throughout the book. Sorry. which is something I found myself thinking throughout the book as I was reading. So chapter 6, which is about socializing, is filled with lists to help you tackle different social situations in life, such as 9 questions to ask yourself when deciding whether or not to go to a party. So 2 of the lists that I actually liked from this chapter that I think are worth sharing. The first one is rules you don't need to follow. I must go to everything I'm invited to. I must stay the entire time. I must look as if I'm having fun. I must fit in. I must not be nervous. The second list that I think is worth sharing, and it relates to the first one, is you should give yourself permission to drive by the party to check it out without going in, to go to the party and leave after 15 minutes, 1 hour, or however long you decide, permission to go in and just people watch, to go and feel nervous, to talk only to guests over the age of 10, to talk to only one person. I think this quote, in Lainey's own words, summarizes this chapter quite nicely. I enjoy social gatherings as long as I know that I can leave soon. Now, around this time in the book is when I went from, oh, this is a fun, decent book about introversion, to I hope no extroverts read this and thinks that this is us. Chapter 7, Working. The lists continue, and we are given advice on how to act in the workplace and in meetings. So for example, deep breathe for 5 minutes before meetings, take breaks in between meetings, say goodbye as you leave, have a firm voice. Now, here is one of several paragraphs in this book moving forward that somewhat accurately summarizes my problem with this book. I quote, "Many people won't understand our need for personal time and space. It's tough to disappoint a friend or to say no to a boss who wants the project done immediately. Negotiate deadlines by explaining to your boss why you need the time. Suggest to your boss, I can complete the first part of the report this afternoon and you can have a few days to review it. Then I can deliver the second part the day after tomorrow." Now, in my interpretation, in this book, introverts are described as fragile human beings who need special treatment. Tying it back to the paragraph that I just read to you, why would being an introvert be a valid reason for requiring more time to finish an assignment at work that has a deadline? You know, there can be a lot of reasons for why someone needs more time to finish an assignment, but being an introvert is not one of them. And if I had someone, like a boss for example, tell me that or offer me more extra time because I am introverted, I would find that to be very condescending. Let's continue reading a couple more paragraphs from this part of the book, which is now the last part of the book, named Creating the Just Right Life. I quote, "Many of the people I had interviewed for this book had come to terms with the fact that they will not have as many friends, be able to work as much, or do as many things as extroverts do." Again, I read this and I wonder why I, as an introvert, would not be able to work as much as someone who is extroverted or do as many things as an extrovert would, whatever that means exactly. Once again, I feel like introversion is being portrayed as a limitation. You know, as an introvert, there are things that I don't want to do or things that don't appeal to me, but there's nothing that I'm not able to do, as Lainey words it. She goes on to write about accepting the fact that we as introverts have limitations and how appreciating our advantages can make us accept our limitations. And I quote, "This does not mean that something is wrong with you. Having limitations is not the problem. It is the meaning we give limitations that causes us so much pain. See if you can put a positive spin on your inborn traits." Now, I do believe that Lainey means well, but I do have a problem with the wording and the way that this message is being conveyed, because to try to put a positive spin on something means that it's inherently negative and you are sort of trying to find the silver lining, and it somehow makes introversion sound like a disease. Now, this is where I sort of just wanted to put the book down and not really ever pick it up again. I quote, "Say to yourself, I have low energy, but that's part of my nature. One of the quickest ways to accept the absence of something we wish we had but don't is to acknowledge disappointment. Many people want to skip over this step. It's called denial. But if you pretend you don't mind not having an energetic body or the ability to spit out repartee, you may be secretly mad, critical of yourself, or feel that you have a serious flaw, and you may keep expecting yourself to be different. We are given feelings to help guide us through life. It is disappointing not being a giant ball of energy. If you let yourself feel the loss, the sadness will pass. In its place will be the appreciation for the efficient energy you do possess." I think this is beautifully worded, but I don't think it is appropriate when describing introversion. Because reading this, and this being a book about introversion, the only thing that makes me feel like I have a serious flaw is, in fact, this book. And it's not disappointing not being a ball of energy. It is disappointing how a book titled How to Thrive in an Extroverted World completely misses the mark, in my opinion. The final chapter in this book is called Extroverting, which, you guessed it, is all about how to be extroverted, and we are offered 7 strategies for doing it. So it's basically, hey, here is an entire book about how to thrive as an introvert. Oh, but you still need to be extroverted though. And she writes about why you need extrovert skills to basically get anywhere in life. And she tells us about how, she would not have had this book had she not been able to extrovert. So if she hadn't pushed herself to make phone calls and to go out to meet people and to meet groups. So the first thing that I would like to point out is that I'm not a fan of the term extroverting. In my opinion, taking an important phone call or showing up to an event or smiling at a stranger is not extroverting. It's just being a participant and a functioning member of society with adequate social skills. In this chapter, she also offers us introverts a survival kit for things to keep in your bag, and here are some of those things. Earplugs to keep noises out, snacks and protein bars to boost your blood sugar, bottled water, a Walkman with soothing music. This book is from 2002, mind you. A note card with an affirmation on it like, "Today I will relax and enjoy what comes." A soothing scent on a cotton ball. Sniff it if unpleasant scents bother you. Medication for motion sickness. An umbrella or parasol if the sun is bothering you. Sunscreen, hand cream, and lip balm. Many innies have sensitive skin. I think these are all great things to keep in your bag, but not necessarily because you are introverted. And again, I feel like it makes it sound like introverts are super fragile and they need all these things and all these planning to simply leave their house. I carry water with me and I carry lip balm. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm introverted, and everything to do with the fact that I don't like being thirsty and I don't like having chopped, dry lips. Please let me know what you think about this introvert survival kit. I would love to hear your thoughts. Now, not liking a book is always a bummer because usually, a ton of time and effort is put into writing a book, and it sure is not an easy task. And so, of course, you want to like it. And the first part of this book, I think, was quite enjoyable, especially for someone who is new to the topic. But the rest of the book, unfortunately, completely lost me because, again, I felt like introverts are described as fragile, disadvantaged creatures with low self-esteem and little to no confidence who need special care. And now, make no mistake, society, or at least Western society, does generally place high value on extroverts and extroverted traits. I have felt this in school, in the workplace, and in everyday life many, many times. I'm sure if you're introverted, you have as well. But that does not mean that I am this little ice cube that will start melting as soon as another human being as much as breathes in close proximity to me, and I will have to be put in a freezer quickly to freeze up again, or in introvert terms, recharge. All in all, I did not experience this book to be about how to thrive as an introvert, as the subtitle suggests, but rather just about how to survive or how to cope with this disadvantage that you have been born with. Now, that's just my opinion. Obviously, a book review is always subjective. You may read this and love it. I know a lot of people did. Some people did not, and that's just the way of life. If you like me talking about books and ranting like this, let me know in the comment section and I will make more of these types of videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.